Let's turn our last kind of just part of the discussion to a relevant topic to today. Here we've been in a pandemic now for really a year, and maybe there's an end in sight. We'll
Mhm.
see. But it's a complicated issue. And a few years ago, another pandemic hit in Africa
Mhm.
that was highly contagious, and had obviously we got very scared here. I know that I was involved with some hospitals in which they were beginning to make contingency plans and how would we be able to manage these issues. So Ebola hits in Eastern Africa.
Western.
Oh, as well. I'm sorry, Western Africa. Correct, Western Africa, and it's obviously a serious issue. And how did we get involved, and how did we change the story in a sense
Hmm.
that issue?
Definitely. So, we were already working, we're active in about 70 countries. And when the Ebola epidemic broke out, we were already working in West Africa. And of course, everything shut down, much like it has here around COVID. People were so frightened. And really, Rick, the desire to really help grew out of the fact that we knew our teams were there. We knew people there. We were really invested in the outcomes of the community. And we knew that the power of story could help people change their behavior, which it became very clear very quickly that that's what needed to happen around things like burials, health seeking behaviors, reporting. Like people really needed to change their behaviors if the epidemic was going to be uh, contained. So, but at the same time, there was this pervasive fear, understandable, but sort of pervasive and paralyzing fear and alarmist messaging. So, one of the things I will never forget is landing in West Africa and seeing a billboard that said, "Come to the hospital, there is no cure."
Wow.
Technically accurate, not effective for what we want, because we wanted people to come to the health centers. But why would I go to the health center if there's no cure? Right?
Well, I'm just going to go die there versus die in my home.
Exactly. And so, we really saw a need to again shift the narrative, right? And here is where, we really drew on this insight of it's a what I would say an evolution of this idea of the transitional character, which is the positive deviant. How can you identify a locally resonant person or composite person that in the same circumstances is being successful and then really leverage their story to inspire others, right? So it's taking the Simplemente Maria story and sort of expanding on it. And so we asked ourselves the question, if 80% of people are dying of Ebola, there are 20% of people that are surviving. So one, survival is possible, which needs to be something that people understand. And two, there are people out there that know what it takes to survive, and we can leverage the power of their stories to help other people know what to do too. And so we launched a campaign, I Survived Ebola. 30 survivors from across the region, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, shared their stories in video, audio. They went on the radio to talk to people. So we would have their cut story, but then they would go on in dialogue, answer questions as people would call in. And it really was able to share life-saving messages with people in a way that they could understand. As we are all experiencing now, novel science is very difficult to wrap your head around when you're in the middle of a crisis. So the epidemiologists understand that every week there's going to be something a little different. I'm very uncomfortable with that. I just want you to help me explain, tell me what to do so I don't get COVID,
Yeah.
you know. And so it's negotiating that, you know, what's accurate but versus what people need to do what's best for them.
And one of the issues that was a subsidiary issue here was that after the people who did survive, they were stigmatized, correct?
Yeah,
Because people were not, because there was so much misinformation,
yeah.
they weren't clear whether they were still contagious or not.
Mhm.
And so they were being ostracized from their communities, which was a whole other kind of issue. Um, so these stories actually were able to shift that attitude
Yes, as
profoundly.
well.
Yeah, in
And
those communities.
stigma is such an interesting issue, and it's an issue that runs across almost all of our programming, stigma and taboo.
Hmm.
And stigma has this dual does this dual damage. So one, these people were really in the very beginning, these survivors ostracized, right? Alienated, lost their jobs, some of them. But the other thing that stigma does is it inhibits behavior change of the larger community, because it's easy for me to say, well, you got Ebola because there's something wrong with you, and separates me from the perceived risk. And so the anti stigma work that was embedded in the campaign was meant to have a dual result. One, it's really important for the mental and social health of these people and their families that they were reintegrated, but also their communities benefited from their reintegration because they were the people that held some of the answers to protecting the community going forward.
Mm. Powerful, powerful. Well, I see we reached the end of our hour.
Yeah.
it,
We'll
it
have to do
went
it
by.
again.
It went by like a flash, and I think we'll have to have you on again, but because I think there's so many other interesting applications, both in the environment. I
Yeah.
know that you're doing work to, for example, change attitudes about the mangroves along coastal areas, um, changing fishing habits in the Caribbean, addressing issues around tolerance of people who are gay or lesbian in some communities in Latin America.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, and then changing attitudes toward food. We have a cooking show in Peru, correct? Where
That's
we're
right.
teaching young people new habits. So PCI is stretching out beyond Sabito's methodology now
Yes.
into other realms. So I think that'll be the next discussion is all these different really unique applications. So
Yeah. I
thank
would,
you so much for taking some time today, Meesha, with me.
you are so welcome. I would love to come back and talk more with you. I mean, there is no question that all of us in the world need some new stories going forward. And I'm just so honored to be part of an organization that is doing this work.
Well, thank you, Meesha. And if people are interested in PCI Media, they can go to pcimedia.org. There's a wealth of resources there that tells the story of how PCI Media is really, really making a huge difference in the world. So thanks again, Meesha.
Thank you, Rick.